Welcome to Career in Progress, a podcast about building the skills that build your career. In this episode, I'm excited to sit down with my incredible guest, Kailesh Karavadra, Silicon Valley leader, Ernst Young, EY office managing partner, angel investor, philanthropist, AI and skill futurist, and a passionate mentor. With over 36 years of experience leading growth market strategies for entrepreneurs, startups, and venture capital, Kailesh has also served on influential boards, including the California Chamber of Commerce, College Future Foundation, EY's Social Justice Fund, Valley Humane Society, and Janyaa, an experiential learning platform for underserved children in India. Climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, to raising funds for education in Africa, to teaching youth soccer in Mumbai, and part owning the Luton Town Football Club, Kailesh brings both adventure and purpose in everything he does. Together, we explore the skills you need for the future of work, why skill-based education matters more than ever, and how to build your own board of mentors and sponsors to help your growth. So, whether you're an entrepreneur or climbing the corporate ladder or figuring out where to start or simply curious how humanity, humor, and heart can shape great growth, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Kailesh, welcome to Career in Progress. I am so thrilled to have this conversation on skills and the future of work with you and ready to learn from your experience. So my friend, my trusted pen and notebook are ready to learn from our insightful conversation today.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Purnimaji, and congratulations on everything you're doing, and really glad to be here.
Thank you. I would like to start right at the beginning. Your journey has taken you across continents, from living in Uganda as a refugee to India to becoming Ernst Young's office managing partner, and an incredible 36 years there focused on entrepreneurs, startups, VCs, and so much beyond. You are also very engaged in the community with your board work, and we'll talk about that as well. I think my, first question to you is, how has the journey shaped the way you view skills? And what are a couple of skills and mindsets that you feel were really critical to helping you stand out in your successful journey thus far?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking that question. And if I might answer that question, Purnimaji, just by maybe walking through some of my journey, because that's where the skills kind of come from. And these might be skills that we don't often categorize and talk about, but I just think that in today's world, it's fascinating for me that I feel like it's a mirror of how I grew up in the 1960s and 70s. So I was born in Uganda, as you know, and left as a refugee. And we were refugees for 2 years through East Africa and then to India and then to England. Nomads living in camps and what have you.
Wow.
And one of the skills that I think that I learned at that time, and I didn't speak English until we landed in England and went to school there, was just this notion of humbleness and just empathy and appreciation. When you live in an environment, which we did in Uganda, which was absolutely, as close to heaven as you can get from the way the community lived. My parents used to tell me we never locked our doors. Guests were welcome at midnight and we'd cook food. And so it was very, very harmonious. And then to be uprooted literally overnight and to be able to kind of go through this. So I think what I learned was there were lots of people helping, like giving the handouts and giving clothes and food and shelter and along the way. And I think that was my first shaping of this skill of humbleness and empathy towards others. And I don't mean that lightly, because in today's world, especially the young people, you're just inundated with so many things coming at you. And when you look at media, social media, news, there's so many terrible things that they all report on that it's very easy to drown yourself in those things. But I think what young people should recognize is we've been there, seen it, done it with people like me and others, that when you have this skill of understanding somebody, It allows you to appreciate where they're coming from and not become very biased. The other skill I would say
Mm,
is when I was studying in England, there was a teacher that really paid attention to me, a
mhm,
Caucasian teacher, didn't look anything like me, bold, ginger beard. And he used to really kind of get me going like, Kailesh, come on, learn something. There's always something to learn. My other skill that I think I've had, and this is embedded in my attitude, is this: be a student at heart. So
mm,
I'm a student of life. I have never stopped learning, no matter what it is. Where it could be incredibly boring, like how do you mow a lawn, or it could be like how do you build a rocket ship. I mean, anything in between. So I would just encourage the young folks to have that mindset of be a student at heart. And then as I started to learn English and
mm.
went to school and got my engineering degree and a master's in AI, and then I became an accountant. Along the way, my first job. So here I am with an engineering degree, a master's in AI, and then I'm now becoming an accountant. So I joined my firm Ernst and Young EY, where I've been 36 years and retiring end of December. So I'm excited
Wow,
about that. But what was really
congratulations.
funny was for the first 4 months of my job, my first task was literally photocopying and making tea and coffee. Now, why is that even relevant in today's world? I share that again with young people that when you do something, just be the best version of yourself.
Mm,
Immerse yourself in it, no matter what it is, because there will be rewards and benefits, and it helps your brand and reputation. I tell you, I till today, my some of the people I worked with still tell me I'm the best photocopier ever. I'm the best coffee maker ever. And so just be aware that a lot of these things we may feel like, why am I doing it? They may only be temporary, but they could be stepping stones to lead you to elsewhere. So those are my skills that I feel that I've picked up along the way, Purnimaji. And again, just embracing what comes at you, having empathy and understanding, and really making sure you immerse yourself in whatever you're doing and not worrying too deep, because a lot of these things could be pathways to some very fantastic things ahead.
I think this is already such a great conversation for everybody listening. I think, especially in today's time of, changing world, we are changing in every possible way with AI and so many other things. I think embracing with empathy. I love that start right there. And then having the, mindset of lifelong learning and looking at things from sponsorship lens to say, find
Yeah.
that way and be the best version of yourself, I think is so incredibly powerful for all the new aspirants in the world and all of us who are dealing with so much change right now.
And Purnimaji, one more thing I could underscore that you just mentioned that I've learned along my entire career and journey. And as much as I feel very blessed where I am and what I've done and experienced, it would not be possible have there not been mentors and sponsors. And you use the word sponsorship. I find that in today's virtual world and how we work and how we've become very siloed. And I would highly encourage all of those listening on this, especially young people, don't underestimate how important mentorship and sponsorship is. Go out and put yourself out there. Go and find people, especially people that don't look like you or who are different to you.
Mm,
You'll be amazed at how they can help you see the world differently and look at things differently. And have your own personal board of directors, as I call them, five
love
to
that.
10 people that you trust and you can go to and talk to. Because in navigating in today's world, I will share, if I was a young person today, and I don't know if I should say this and embarrass myself, but here you go. I feel like I might struggle today compared to when I was a youngster in the world we lived in. Now it was very different, but today there's so much happening. So you really do need that personal board of directors of people you trust and can really help you navigate and guide you to make sure that you get through things. But that's a great point you brought up.
I'm going to double click on something you said, which is the personal board of directors. It is incredibly valuable, but I'll just be very upfront and honest to say it's incredibly hard
Oh
to
yeah.
put yourself out there. It is incredibly hard to be vulnerable and to have the confidence. What would your one or two tips, pro tips for younger people be, or even people who want to create that board of directors be? How can they reach out? How can they just go and have a conversation? And how did that, how did you make that happen for yourself?
Oh, that's such a wonderful question you raise. And I agree with you. It's very hard. This is not easy to do.
Mm,
But I always say that if anything is worth doing, it's probably hard. So, young people should remember that if it's easy,
mm,
it's probably not worth doing. So, I think on this level, what I would encourage people to do is start with one. Just find somebody that you want to connect with, you want to get a deeper relationship with, and be upfront. What I found when I started
mm,
with my very first mentor is I was very straightforward, transparent, and direct. Of hey, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? Where would I like to go? And they understood that. You use the word vulnerable, which is very important. If you can be humble and vulnerable, you'll be amazed at what how people open up to you in a reverse way. But I think that finding that first person is important. Now, you may reach out to 20 people as to start with, and you may only get one. You may not get any, but don't let that deter you. Go to the next 10, go to the next
mm.
20. And for anybody listening, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help you with my network, and I'm sure Purnima ji as well, and others are. But I highly encourage you, once you get one, then that relationship, that learning from there, you can now start building that out. Because what you do want to do, remember, is you don't want just people who are like you or like minded or the same. That doesn't get you anywhere. I'm sure they'll probably say, great job, well done. But is that going to help you? What you want are people that can see things differently, kind of to help you in spaces that you're not an expert in or areas that you don't really study or spend time in. So if you look at my personal board of directors, I
Mm.
have 8 people and they're in 5 countries. And
Wow.
they are professional people as well as people who don't work, as well as somebody who's retired, as well as somebody who's, has nothing to do with business. But I can go to them and they can always kind of look at something, a problem, a challenge, an opportunity, and say, have you thought about this? And I always walk away feeling so much more comfortable, confident. So your goal is find one, start there
Mm.
and keep at it until you find, and then say, okay, this mentor or sponsor gives me this. What else am I missing? I need somebody here, I need somebody there, and so on. And by the way, this doesn't happen overnight, right? As you know very
Yes.
well, Purnima ji,
Yeah.
this is something that's a journey, and some of these personal board of directors will come and leave and what have you. So you should look at this as a living, breathing thing versus oh, let me just do it today and then that's it. It's evolving as you evolve and as you grow.
I'm going to summarize what you said so that I make sure I got it because there's such a wealth of information there. So take even one step, start with one, be relentless, own it, keep going after it, and keep going after it continuously throughout your life. It's not a one time job, it's an ongoing work to seek mentorship, and you're bored all the time. I am going to switch gears about
Yep.
something that I know you and I are very passionate about, which is upskilling and reskilling
Yep.
and future of education, very connected to this. So you've served on an incredible range of boards from the College Future Foundation and the California Chamber of Commerce. By the way, I saw you hosting the 96th Sacramento breakfast, and that was amazing. Your presence in the conversation was amazing. And so were your dad jokes in there, by the way. So,
You're
so
very kind. You're very In fact, for your audience here, I don't know if they might have picked up on the news today, Purnima ji, on the front page. Apparently, Oreo is coming out with a new product. They're putting AI in there, very apt for today. So for you young people, go and eat this new product, Oreo AI, because if you eat it, you'll be one smart cookie.
I'm sure Oreo didn't sponsor that joke, but that's an incredible one to share. Thank you so much. So, upskilling and
Yes.
reskilling. And I believe, your work with College Board, with Janyaa in India, and so many other boards you are on gives you a thought leadership on how education, workforce, and community needs are changing. It also gives you, like, they say, the front row seats to the future of work. What role does reskilling and upskilling play in preparing for the future?
Let me try and break this down, Purnima ji, in maybe bite-size
Mm,
components that people can understand. So I've been a student of history and humanity, and I've read up a lot of books on, and if you go back in time, we've always been a very supply led society. So basically, if you go and learn a skill, or you go and get a degree, or you go and pick up something, there's a job for you. There's
Mm,
something for you to do. I think that we have flipped that switch with all this technology disruption, and it started happening maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But we've now gone from a supply driven to a demand led, which
mm,
means that it isn't just good enough for young people to kind of say, hey, what might have worked 5 years ago, 10 years ago will continue working. So I'm going to, first of all, just encourage all these young folks out there to just pause for 1 second and don't get too enamored with what's going on in the world today. We always talk about AI, and it's here today, but I guarantee you in like 2 3 years there'll be some other version that we'll be talking about.
maybe.
And so that's not the issue. The issue is, how do I fit in into this new society that's evolving and growing? And we
Mm,
are in the middle of sausage making, as it were. We haven't stabilized, and I think that for quite a while now we're going to be in this evolving, dynamic, agile environment where you have to be adaptable. And so
mm,
this reskill upskill notion is really about building your skills versus certificates and titles and things that you can put on your resume. Because I think that what exists today will be very different or may not exist in 2 3 years. What exists and will be there in 2 3 years will not no longer be in that version the following 2 3 years. So now we're in this cycle of economy and marketplace and skills and where have you, where you have to be dynamic. And this learning, being a student
mm,
forever, is something that we have to kind of get our minds around. As far as specific skills, and here's the other challenge we have. Our academic institutions have a lot of
mm,
inertia. It's very hard for them to suddenly
yes.
say, let's stop the curriculum, let's revise it, let's get the accreditation, all of that. So for young people, whether you're at high school or college or wherever, you have to kind of go through that. But I'm going to encourage you to kind of say, hey, what else can I do? Don't rely
Mm,
on that academic institution to give you everything you need, because they're trying to resolve, they're trying to evolve, and they're trying to figure out how they can move along with this new society that we have, right?
mm,
At the same time, on the demand side, jobs, the commercial side, and where you might work, that too is evolving. They are trying to figure out where's the entry level jobs, how are jobs going to look with technology coming in to do a lot of the simple tasks. So you've got the business environmental changing with work, you've got the academic institutions changing with work, and you're right in the middle of this. And so but I don't think, and I want to give this more as a vote of confidence versus fear. I don't think you should say, oh, yeah, this will figure itself out in 2 years or 3 years and we'll be back to
mm,
no. I don't think we're elastic anymore. I think we've moved away from what we used to do. And I think you have an excellent opportunity. In fact, for many young people, I'm very jealous because the kind of things you're going to see in the next 5, 10 years will completely outweigh anything I've seen in my almost 60 years, right? So it's very exciting and you should embrace it that way versus out of fear. But I'll give you a quick example,
mm.
Purnimaji. I was
Yeah.
with some futurist professors a while back, and they were talking about how we're going to live to be 120 and living in space and all sorts of things around the corner. And by the way, I think this is going to happen in my lifetime, not, so it's not like it'll be 200 years away. So we're going to see a lot of this. And it was fascinating when asked this question of what skills or what worries you the most about the future. You know what they said was, they said, we're worried that human beings, you and I, are losing our ability to be curious, to be
Mm,
inquisitive. And they rank that as the number one skill that people are going to need in the future. So if you think about robotics and you think about all the technology and you think about efficiencies in automation that are coming along, the doing society is reducing. When we went from the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, to, order the manufacturing, and so that doing world may
mm,
not be in the form that we know. But I think that we're going to
mm,
have new problems, new challenges, new things that we can go after with all this new stuff that's available that we haven't even thought about. So those that are curious, inquisitive, who can problem solve, design think, have critical thinking skills, and which, by the way, doesn't mean you have to be an engineer or a programmer. You could have art and you could have psychology and you could be a history major, but you need to have those skills in there to kind of look at something and say, could that be done better? Oh, wow, nobody solved this. How can we go and solve this? So that's what's really out there, I think, Purnimaji, and what we're going to see over the next 5 years or so that as we evolve in all of these different areas, work environment, academic institutions, and how we fit into all of that as a society.
I totally agree with you there in the sense that, we've associated the words design thinking, critical thinking, analytical ability, data synthesis with typically traditional career engineering roles.
Yes.
And today's era needs that with, we never associated that with art or painting or musician or so on and so forth. And that's a huge paradigm shift there. And possibly to your point, there is a new normal that's being defined. I'll be curious from your perspective to know what are some of the urgent needs in the education system that needs to change for preparing the next generation of future thinkers and future of work in every dimension. What should
I
be some
think
of
one of the
those
biggest
changes?
things, and
Yeah,
I am working with a number of colleges and academic institutions around this, is again, it's very hard if you imagine, there's with our accreditation systems and with diplomas and certificates and degrees and stuff, you can't really change on it in a dime, and they are trying, and we will get there, but it's going to take time. But what I think their biggest need is going to be this notion. If I'm in a classroom and I'm a professor and I'm teaching, or I'm a teacher and I'm teaching, I think this is a two-way street of one, the person teaching needs to go from saying this is not about knowledge acquisition and memorizing. It needs to be to the development of insights and perspectives that lead to deployment and action. So let me give that a little bit unpacking of that. So, like you said, you could be an arts major, you could be doing psychology, you could be doing engineering, or science. It doesn't really matter. But a lot of what happens is you go into the classroom, you have a textbook, you learn, and then you have tests. And yes, ChatGPT and other tools can help you with all of that stuff. But
yeah,
what you've done is memorized a lot of things. You've accumulated that knowledge. The problem is, and I go back to when I started, I'll digress 1 second. When I started
sure.
my job in 1990, there were no computers, phones, and things that we had. I had to carry these books, thick books of tax accounting policies and guidelines and accounting guides that we had. And I would have to refer to them every time a client had something like, oh, on page 670, it says this. So now fast forward to 36 years onwards. I don't need to carry anything. I have all of that knowledge available. So what I'm encouraging young people to do and the academic institutions is, yes, some of that knowledge is needed and awareness in that, but then go an extra distance to say, what does that knowledge really mean? Instead of can I
Mm,
apply that somewhere?
mm,
Can I think about that? What perspective can I gain from that? How can I do some thinking around that? And that's the skill. That is the skill that is going to be needed as we go forward there. And that's what I'm pushing for, Purnimaji, in all of my work around reskill, upskill. And whether you're a young person, by the way, at college, or whether you're an adult that's had their job displaced or that is looking to get back into the workforce, it's exactly the same thing. We've got to get into this agile mode of skill and reskill quickly. It may be relevant for a few years, then you go again. But the constant in all of this is that be a student, have a thinking hat on, continue to fine tune your problem solving, your design thinking, your capability to bring insights and perspectives. That doesn't change. The problem may
yep.
change, the work may change, but that skill is going to be needed as we go forward, more than ever.
I think this itself we can talk for about 3 hours, 4 hours, because this is sparking so many thoughts in my mind and so much hope to say, yes, we need a skill based education system where we can actually help people young people, right from their start, build the skills of learning, build the skill of curiosity, build the skill of problem solving, and actually have that education system foster the application of that, which is what I gather from you right now, right? And I think that's so different than the education system you and I grew up in. And it also means we have to shift the design of that education system. As a learning executive, I think about design at scale all the
Yes.
time. And we have to shift the design of, what is one size fits all to a very personalized, application based model at scale. And
One
I
of
and
the
it is sorry, go ahead.
one
I
of the
know.
key things, Purnimaji, I totally agree with you there, is I also have been noticing,
Mm,
and you can correct me if you've seen this elsewhere in a different way, but I find that as time has gone on, especially in the last 10 years, maybe 5 years, the joy of learning. So this isn't about just go to school, get your grades, and then apply, and then do your tests and get the highest grades. And I feel like when I speak to young people, just the joy of learning, joy of reading, joy of picking up something that is new, is different, learning
yes.
about what's going on in other parts of the world, in agriculture, science, space, it doesn't matter. But just that curiosity of kind of saying, that's interesting. How does the microwave work? How does the fridge work? How does, who invented pizza? Just being able to kind of ask questions and say, where's that joy of learning? I think we need to get back to that. That's the spirit, I think, that we need to instill from academic institutions to parents to our society. Right. And I think we don't talk about that enough. And I worry that we've mechanized this so much
Mm,
that it suddenly becomes like, oh, it's a checklist. Okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. But the joy of that learning brings so much excitement and vibrancy, and it fires up your neurons. And I've been a neurologist and studying the brain
yeah.
for many, many years. And I just think that there are aspects of the brain which we do not use or do not get excited or ignited by the way the current academic institutions have the learning programs. And we've got to figure that out and get that closer together.
I see it even in my own household. I mean, of course, I design at scale for, large corporations, but the way my children learn versus the way I learn, completely different. They scroll about, 100 pieces of content in 10 minutes, and they seem to gather information from that. They know all about the world, even beyond what I know, and they are so current on many things. I think there is, to your point, there needs to be a paradigm shift in the way we ignite people, in the way we serve up learning and education in at all levels, whether it is schools, colleges, or corporations, right? I think that needs to shift so that people can ask more of why. And
I, I, I
the
also
answers are everywhere. I think we just need to provide a platform to say why, and people can find the answers. Please go ahead.
no, I was going to say, Purnamaji, you hit upon something that I feel somewhere along the line, our society changed from owning all of this to outsourcing it. This
Mm,
notion of learning, this notion of joy, this notion of being curious. So if you go back many, many decades, right, and hundreds of years ago, really it was the parents and the family and the local ecosystem that allowed the young minds to be curious and learn. And it was hands on, this apprenticeship model. And then,
mm,
of course, we started to get busy and jobs and people went to work. Mums and dads were busy. And in today's world, they might have two different jobs, three different jobs they're doing. So
right.
we've suddenly said, hey, the upbringing of these young minds is now handed off to the teachers, the colleges, the high schools, wherever. And I just think that we need to pause a little bit
Mm,
and know that that isn't going to work. You have to be responsible. You have to be engaged. You have a role to play in this, whether it's the family, whether it's the extended family, whether it's your local ecosystem. But I think that until we start to recognize and people start saying, hey, I need to make time for this as much as I make time for anything else. I'll give you an example. One of the things
mm,
I'm so happy that I do is two things. One is reading books. I read a book a week. I mean, I pick
Mm.
up something and I go through it every single day. I read probably for an hour. And my kids learned that. And now I see them reading, even though they're young adults. But we did this when they were young. It was all the time
Mm.
read, read, read. The other thing is just having a little humor in you. So I tell dad jokes.
Yes.
And I mentioned
Yes.
pizzas, and I was going to tell you my pizza joke just now, Purnimaji, but it might be a little cheesy, so I won't mention that. But just having this sense of how do you have some humor and a little bit of, but that doesn't happen at school. That's not the teacher's jobs.
Yes.
That's not the academic institute. That's our society. That's our family. That's so I feel like we really need to pause and say, who is owning this joy of
Mm.
learning that our young minds need to have? And we can't outsource that.
That is so beautifully said. So it still takes a village to raise a child, and the village is owned by you. To move a little bit to your other direction where you have had, a huge contribution to make, and that is your contributions to evaluating ventures and evaluating opportunities. I'm sure many young people want to know, as you look at startups, as you look at companies, as you look at VCs, how do you evaluate an opportunity and say, yes, this is the one I want to invest in, or this is the one that I think has the huge potential to go after? How does one look at that? I know many want to do it, but I'm sure many want to know, how does one actually approach that?
I think I'll split that up into two areas. Of one, if you want to be an entrepreneur and innovator, I highly encourage you to do that. It is so fun. It is so exciting and interesting, and especially in today's world. So if you go back maybe 15, 20 years even, unless you were like in the heart of Silicon Valley, or you were in some of these centers where there was capital, venture capital money, private equity money, and it took a lot of money to get things from an idea to implementation.
Mm,
Today, I'm seeing examples of young people in the middle of Africa
mm,
developing things with just their laptop and their mobile phone that is, 5 versions old from where you might be today. And they're absolutely making things happen with very little cost and capital. The key thing that you need is an idea that is impactful, that you truly believe in, and that you're passionate about. And whatever that is, whether that's to improve society or whether that's a business venture, it's okay to
mm,
want to make money, by the way. I always feel like sometimes we feel guilty talking about wanting to be rich or wanting to make money. That's totally okay because I'm
yeah,
assuming you want to do that so you can do other things and make society
sure.
better, and that's okay. But there are others who have a very philanthropic heart and they just want to do good, and that's equally just as great. So I highly encourage you to do that. It's very easy to make that possible. Now, if you want to support a venture of any kind, I think you've got to ask yourself, like, is this part of you? One of
Mm,
the things that I've learned along my journey of being a nomad in 4 continents and all the things I've done is I've discovered me. And I would
wow.
actually underscore that with all of the listeners here that we run around so much that you don't spend enough time knowing who you are truly.
Wow.
Like, who are you? Who is Kailesh? Today, I am so comfortable and I can tell people this is Kailesh. Whether I'm at a barbecue or I'm in a board meeting or this is Kailesh. This is who I am. I'm comfortable in my skin and this is what I'm built for, right? Because we're not all good at everything. Not all of us
Mm,
can be entrepreneurs. Not all of us can be CEOs. Not all of us can be good at education. That's all right. But who are you and what are you built for? So once you know that, I think then you've got to gravitate to organizations that have those values, those impacts, that purpose that makes you feel a sense of belonging. And I'm an emotional investor, so I'll hands up, I'll
sure.
give you that. I usually go, my first thing is I like working with people. So I'm
Oh,
often drawn to the person and then the idea and then okay, what do you get for that?
nice.
Whereas some people might well say, hey, I just really want that idea because I know it's going to be successful in 2 years, 3 years, and so on. That's okay as well. But I would encourage you to start with who are you, discover
Mm,
yourself, and know who you are and how you're built. What are you good at? What are you not good at? Once you know that, I think a lot of other things can be very easily navigated to, including all of this entrepreneurship.
I never thought about entrepreneurship and investments from an inside out perspective, which is what you brought in. For me, the way I perceived it more was outside in, which is you evaluate things and then you look at. But I love the way you phrased it and positioned it, which is keep it close to who you are and know who you are. Very curious to know, Kailesh, how did you start your journey of figuring out who you are? And was there a book or something that you would recommend as your guiding North Star that people can really lean in and start learning as well?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples to
Mm.
illustrate how some of this might work. So, yes,
Yeah.
reading, talking to people, all of that is helpful. But there have been a few episodes in my life that have really been defining for me, that
Mm.
made me really pause and say, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? There's a quote, Purnimaji, that I have that I use often, which is that everybody is born with a gift. The problem is most people never open theirs. So your job, I say this to a lot of young people I speak to when they say, "Oh, I want to be an accountant or I want to be a lawyer or whatever." And I say, actually, your job is to find out what gift you were born with. So you've got to continue exploring, navigating, understanding, unpacking. And for some of us, right, if we understand that, like if you're Beethoven, you know that by age 4, you're going to be the greatest music creators of all time. But for some of us, it might not be till we're 70, until we're 80, who knows? But your job is to find that gift. Once you understand that mentally, I think that you keep a lookout. Your senses go up, your antenna is up, and you're experiencing things. And for me, I've had episodes in my journey where things have happened. I mean, I lost my father when he was at a young age, and that just
Sorry
made
to
me
hear that.
pause. Being a refugee, that was like a pause moment. When I had an arranged marriage, I met my wife, and within 2 days we were married. And we've been married 36 years. She's great, and but it's like when we had our kids, and when my son got married, all these moments where suddenly you just kind of want to just sit there and think, not talk,
Mm.
not do anything, and just say, what's happening around me? Who am I? Where am I? What's going on? And it's a journey. So it's not like you'll
Mm.
discover yourself immediately. You might change over time. You might see. So to me, Purnimaji, this is a constant exercise of pausing, number one,
Okay.
reflecting, number two, and number three, being able to talk to people about your thinking, your feelings. Don't bottle it up, and get some other perspectives like your personal board of directors, going full circle back, that help you to kind of say, yeah, that is you, Kailash. Yes, no, that is not you, Kailash. Don't do that. You're not good. Like I'm having this battle right now with this long hair. I've never had long hair before. And my daughter thinks it's old age crisis. So we're having this battle of, no, I think this is me. And she, no, Dad, that's not you. So I'm now exploring this. I'm actually reflecting on this. I'm thinking about this, getting input. As simple as that. But it'll define me as to where I am.
That is such a great framework. I really appreciate the vulnerability, you shared it with, and the humility and humor you added to it. So pause, reflect, get perspective, and repeat the cycle. And, that's how learning happens.
One more quick thing, Purnimaji, I'll share with young people or your listeners is that a lot of what we just talked about, we've had fun discussing it, and it's easy to speak through things, but many of these things are very hard. They're not
Yes.
easy to do. I mean, if it was,
Yes.
everybody in the world would be doing it. But I'm going to share a story with you that I use personally to encourage me and to give me confidence that you need to stay the path. So I've been studying bamboo trees for a long time.
Mm.
So it's one of my favorite trees. And I'm a very spiritual person, by the way. I should have said in our earlier discussion that when you discover yourself, you'll find lots of different tentacles around it. So let me illustrate that through the bamboo tree story. So if you don't know, bamboo trees can grow to 100 feet tall. And if you watch YouTube videos and things, they literally can grow 10 feet a day. So for the mathematicians that are listening, they're probably saying, oh, within 10 days, 2 weeks, they can grow to their height. But actually, it takes almost 5 years or so. And the reason is for
Mm,
4 years and 11 months and some change, they're only a foot off the ground. And the reason is that they're building these roots, these foundations. And then they literally do shoot up within a few weeks to be 100 foot. But why is that important is that you'll never hear of bamboo trees falling down. They sway,
mm,
but they won't fall down. And the reason is those roots are really strong. So one of the things I'm a big fan of, and I encourage young people to do, is build those roots, those
mm,
foundations, go deep, because your time to shoot up, whether it's your career, whether it's your personal journey, whether it's some ambition, whatever it is, there will be a time when it happens fast. And what I have found personally and with others is that when you're in the middle of a lot of this, you don't have time to pause. You're just running.
yeah.
And what you want to do is get yourself organized with the foundational elements so that you can run fast at the right time. And so don't be in a rush. Spend the time and things like spiritually, mentally, learning the skills we talked about, physically,
Mm,
looking after yourself, the energy levels, all the things about being healthy, your networks, the people you hang out with, your connections, all of that energy and karma and vibes and things, if you take the time to build those roots, it may feel like it's slow, it may feel like it's hard, but at the right
mm,
time, your time will come when you will shoot up just like the bamboo tree. And the good news is there'll be hardships and challenges and stuff, but all you'll do is sway. You're not going to fall over. You're not going to get knocked down. And that's what you really need to look for in life. And especially in the world that I see growing in the next 20, 30 years, there's going to be lots of ups and downs, lots of
yeah.
side movements, lots of swaying needed because we're in just that agile, disruptive, kind of fast moving world. And so I just think that in all of those things that I'm sure you know about Purnimaji that we've learned, in Sanskrit and all those thousands of years ago, our ancestors, I think it's time to revive some of those and say, make sure you're grounded in your roots of spirituality, your physical, your energy levels, and mentally, just how you, making, and especially with mental stress. We haven't talked about that, but the stresses of
Yes.
today are
Yes.
enormous from all sorts.
Yes.
How do we calm that down a little bit? How do you have outlets for that? And when you do that, other things will happen at the right time.
I love the analogy to bamboo tree. I had the chance to see some incredible bamboo trees in Japan, and right, and it's an incredible analogy. And you talked about stress, and I know right after this we'll go into our next segment. What are some of the ways that you see managing stress? What are some of your pro tips to the next generation to say, hey, here are a couple of things you can do? Because a lot of times when we think about doing things, we are like, I don't have time. Right, you can keep telling me what to do, but I don't have time. I already have, this 100 things to do. What are some of the ways that in your busy schedule of doing so many things, you find ways to manage that stress to kind of really keep you grounded and keep you strong?
As a spiritual person, I've come to appreciate, and through my own personal journey and experiences, that often there's very few things we control. Right? I mean,
Mm,
truly control. You can influence your health and your well-being, and you can learn and you can network and you can try and put all of these things you can, but you never control that. You can influence things. The only thing that we control, truly control, is our attitude, is our mindset towards
mm,
things. So once you recognize that, number one, just know that things will happen. You may just happen to be things that you can't change it. You're not going to be, you may not like it, but things will happen. Just recognizing that for 1 second and not getting emotional about it is number one step. Number two step is being able to have outlets. I think that these personal board of directors, your networks, your mentors, your sponsors, or even simple things, if you don't have those, just having some humor, like the dad jokes that I say, or reading, or going to the gym, or going for a run, some way to let some of that out, to calm yourself down a little bit. The third is I actually do a lot of breathing and
Mm.
meditation and yoga things. Now you may feel like you either know it or you don't believe in it or whatever, but we human beings need a lot of the steadiness inside our body as much as we do mentally. That helps us. And so breathing, eating right, trying to get some sleep, just relaxing. I find that running around is not productive. We may
Mm.
feel like I'm doing 20 things today. Great. I feel excellent. I checked it. But then when you look back and you say, all right, the universe doesn't revolve around me, right? If I don't do 10 of those things, would anybody care? Would somebody miss those things? And I think once you get down to that level of humbleness and a little bit of like, okay, let's prioritize. But
Yep. Yep.
remember, if you don't look after yourself, you don't prioritize yourself, and you make excuses of I'm running around, I'm doing things, whatever, you won't be the best version of yourself. If you're not the best version of yourself, you won't be the best dad, the best mother, the best brother, the best friend, the best husband, whatever. And you want to be that, right? We all aspire to that. So you have to be selfish. And I'm encouraging your
Yeah.
listeners
Yeah.
to be selfish, to say, put yourself at the center. You have to be the best version of yourself. Take care of yourself first. It's like that aircraft thing, right? Put the mask on yourself before
Yep.
you cannot outsource that responsibility. You cannot say make me healthy, make me smart, make me, sleep better, make me do. That's your responsibility. And as soon as you know those things, suddenly all those other things going on in the world, they become a little fuzzy and noise. It's just noise. Once you get there and you're comfortable with yourself, then you can start tackling other things. But I think we've forgotten that. I think we suddenly feel like everything else around the world is my ownership and I'm in it and I'm in the middle of it. And so I'm encouraging your listeners, be selfish about taking care of yourself.
I like the note of selfishness there because you're right. I think we are in a era where we feel there is so much change. So you're running behind that with that. That's one. The second, there's also certain pride, I will say, in this society where you're saying, oh my God, I am so busy. There's like, to say that I just did nothing today just feels like I'm not capable, or there's some association of that too. So I love the angle of saying, look at your circle of control. Accept that change is inevitable and not every change can be controlled by you. Be relentless to prioritize
Yes.
and be selfish to take care of yourself because your only goal is to be the best version of yourself. Thank you so much. This is so much fun, Kaileshi, having this conversation. I am going to take us to a round called the rapid fire,
Uh-oh.
which I never told you about, but I didn't tell you anything either earlier. So this is going to be more fun because I'm not going to put you on a timer, but it's going to be five questions of fairly short-ish answers. No timer to say, but they're going to be fast questions. Five questions on a little bit lighter note as well.
Okay.
Yep. Are you ready to play?
Let's do it.
I know, put on your soccer shoes on. I mean, football shoes on right now, right? Kaileji, we've been talking about a lot of change, right? We've been talking about skills, the change. But here's my question to you. You've gone to some of the most prestigious institutions and read leadership, Stanford, Harvard, London Business School, Kellogg, and so on, right? What is the one timeless leadership mantra or skill or philosophy that you believe does not change in this changing world?
Very simply, people don't care what you know until they know you care. So if you can master that, you will be
I
absolutely
love that.
successful because people will follow you, listen to you, pay attention to you. So it doesn't matter what you do. It's this notion of caring that I think has come through for me in everything that I do, no matter what it is.
Is there one or two tips that you can share with the next generation to say, how do you show that care in everything you do? You did talk about being the best version of yourself, which to me is care. Is there more that you can add to it?
The notion of care and love and all of those things, they are feelings that are only real from the recipient standpoint. I could
Mm,
say I care about you so much, but that doesn't mean anything until you tell me, like, yeah, I feel that. So to me, one of the biggest skills I think we've got to continue to nurture, and especially with your listeners and young people, is that in amongst all this technology and everything else that's going on and the changes and disruption, we are still a human society, a people
mm,
society, and relationships matter. And I don't think we spend enough time on that at academic institutions or in our family circles, just talking about that of how do we care for each other? How do we understand each other? How do we build these relationships, these soft skills? And I think they are so important. And in fact, I'm going to go on a limb and say they will be way, way more important in our society as we go forward
mm.
than your technical knowledge will be.
I'm going to actually take you to the next question, right? Connecting to that. You said, the soft skill or the human centered skills are going to be possibly even way more important. What are some of the top human centered skills that we all as a society need to focus on?
I think the first one is just being empathetic. So there's so much polarization and bias in this world, and some of it is because of influence from how people are getting their information and volumes of data and so on. So I'm going to encourage people that before you make up your mind on anything, just pause and say, if I was in their shoes, how would I feel? How do I understand something? And I think that the ability to have dialogue, I think,
Mm,
Purnimaji, I feel like we've forgotten how to have conversations in today's world.
yes,
And part of it is
absolutely.
because we're running around and busy. And part of it is because we have technology. I send a text or I send an emoji or I
Yeah.
send an email. That's not a conversation. That's information sharing. But you and I right now are having a conversation. So I'm asking your listeners to say, when did you last pause, not multitask, and just have a conversation with somebody about whatever it is? Doesn't matter. It could be mundane things of your best coffee that you drink, or it could be your soccer team, or it could be, hey, what's going on in, the middle of Africa or something. But just have a conversation. And
Mm,
I just think that if we can get that skill into people, that's the relationship building. Then you suddenly have understanding, empathy, a connection, and now you can actually try and solve things, right? Together. But I feel today we're not having conversations, and it starts all the way from top leaders in government to leaders in business to our society. I feel like we need, instead of telling and rhetoric and preaching and having conferences where we just go, tell people, have a conversation.
I love that. So, empathy, have conversation. And to me, the conversation, skill that you shared is you're actually saying have the ability to listen,
Yes.
have the ability to be curious and learn, have the ability to just critically analyze the information you're listening to as well. So, all those skills are going to be critical: empathy, critical thinking, ability to communicate, ability to listen and learn, all of it. I am going to shift a little bit here. Football. Tell me what brought your journey, part owning a team in Luton, in football, and how does that align to your journey and the breadth of things that you do?
Thank you for asking something that's very near and dear to me. So yes, I am one of the owners of Luton Town Football Club in the UK. I was very lucky. I played soccer in the UK from a young age, and then I've managed and coached teams here in the Bay Area where I live, adult teams, and had the chance to get involved with Luton Town. And I'll tell you how this all came about. So I'm a
Yeah.
very big believer in giving back. So this is one of my
Yes.
tenets of my roots. Per the bamboo tree. So I've been back to Africa and we've done stuff there. I've been back to India, done stuff there. I've gone back to my university, started an entrepreneurial class, and Luton is where I grew up in
Right.
really my young age. And I always wanted to give back, and I got connected with Luton Town because they were very community focused. They were trying to help young people and trying to grow the town, and it's not a very affluent area. So we've had some fun. And for those of you who don't know, go look up the story of Luton Town. We were the first club to go from like non-league, like literally we were like playing with 100 people all the way up
Wow.
to the Premier League and playing really the big clubs out there that people know. and we're doing great for the town. I'm so excited that in the next 5 years, we're going to completely help so many people. So at the heart of this is one, I just love the sport, but two, there's a purpose behind it.
Mm.
And I think in case I didn't share this message, I'm one of those people who I live with experiences versus outcomes. So if I can just explain that quickly,
Yeah.
I do a diversity of things, whether I'm on boards or with soccer, or I've done triathlons, or I go to the slums in India to help, or whatever. I love the experiential side of it. I feel like that drives me and motivates me versus like, let me go and do this and that's the outcome and that's it. The outcome is less important than the experiential journey. So if you're built like that, I highly encourage you. Don't be afraid. You have the courage, diversify, do one thing, and then once you experience that, go do something else. Could be completely different. Then go do something. I think that life affords you the opportunity to do that. So I'm encouraging your listeners to have the courage and the confidence that there's no
Mm.
such thing as failure. Some things work, some things don't work. You're going to learn, you're going to meet new people, you're going to be better off as you, and so on and so forth. So don't even have that word of failure. Things, just keep going, learn, keep experiencing different things.
That is so well said. I really believe there is a whole TV series to be made, just like Ted Lasso, not just because there is a soccer or football analogy to it, but I do believe the leadership lessons shared through from that and your journey are so incredible. Thank you so much. So live the experience, got that, writing that down. Question number 4. I genuinely see you writing your autobiography sometime with so many experiences that you have. What would be the title of that book?
I've had so many people ask me about this, and I don't know that I'm a good author. I love reading and I love reading books, but I don't know if I'm a good author. And I try and inspire people in my own way of talking to people and so on. But if there was ever a book to be written, I think what a great title would be The Refugee Who Told Dad Jokes. I think that would sum me up very well. Which reminds me, I don't know if you know this, but there's an entrepreneur, we were talking about this earlier, in the Silicon Valley, who's building a bar on the moon. And apparently the food and drinks will be out of this world, but there may not be much of an atmosphere. So I feel. By the way, I should tell you this. It's so funny. I tell dad jokes at my work with my teams, and you won't believe this, but I get pinged all the time from teams all over the world that'll just say, not asking for my intellect or for my insights or for my knowledge. They'll say, "We're having a stressful day today, Kailesh. You got a dad joke?" And I'm thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to be known for on my tombstone here.
That is very high intellect, actually. To come up with dad jokes is very high intellect. I couldn't do that at all. I couldn't come up with two jokes. I love that. By the way, which is the joke that got you most laughs or roll of eyes from your kids?
Oh, so by the way, the reason why the dad joke started was because I wanted to connect with my kids as they were growing up. You know how old parents, right? It's like the children say, "Walk 10 feet behind me, dad." And I always thought, like, how do I connect? That was it really. And I thought, well, maybe if I tell them dad jokes, they'll pay attention and listen versus me telling them to do things, clean your room, do your homework and things. So I started many, many years ago. And so it's become a tradition, and even to this day, they never tell me like good dad joke. They'll sound rolling eyes all the time and
Of
say,
course.
it's a good thing you're not a comedian. But I think my favorite one that I started with when they were younger was, why don't skeletons go to parties? Because they have no body to go with. And I always think it was so funny. I think they liked that one. I genuinely think they liked. And so that's what started this. And then I kind of said, you know what? We're always so stressed in meetings, in board meetings, in our executive meetings, and so on and so forth. So literally every single thing that I've done in maybe the last 10 plus years, I've had dad jokes, whether I'm in front of 2,000 people presenting or sharing, or whether I'm in a, one-on-one situation. But I find that if you can be a little bit vulnerable, humble, humility, like you said, but also just bring a bit of levity. I think we're too serious. I think we take
I
ourselves too
agree.
serious. And I think if the more we can encourage the young people to not get caught up in that, in the rat race of status and egos, and they just don't take yourself too serious. Just live for the moment. Let's keep planning for the future, but if you keep running for the future, you're going to miss all the wonderful things right in front of you right now. And that worries me sometimes. And it'd be great for people to just pause, as I said, to slow down a little bit.
Whether it is a book, whether it's a Netflix series, whether it's a podcast, whatever, the refugee who told dad jokes, I'm signing up for that and definitely onto that. That's very, very well said. And, by the way, the metric of success, because we are in the valley and we talk about metrics for everything, of a dad joke is the number of roll of eyes. That has to be the metric of success. So you clearly are very successful in that. Yeah. The last question, if you had the opportunity to eat dinner with someone real or fictional, who would that be? And what skill would you want to have a conversation with them around and learn from? So, fictional or real?
Um, oh my gosh. So, I, being a big reader, I have a lot
Mm,
of inspiring role models that I've picked up
mm,
along the way. And they range from the obvious of, Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and what have you, right? All the way to people that like AP Abdul Kalam, one of my favorite leaders of what he did for young people. And so I read up a lot of those kinds of things. But if there was somebody that I would really love to meet, um, there's one or fictitious person. So I'll give you one
okay.
first. He's the Curious George. So
Oh,
the books
nice.
that people read. I
Yeah, yeah.
read my with
The
my
man
kids.
with the yellow hat
Yeah,
and
the man.
Curious George.
I love that character, and only because I think as I was reading to my kids all these books,
Mm,
it actually changed me to be curious and to be inquisitive and to keep asking questions and getting
I
into
love that.
trouble doing that. As my mom will say, well, whenever she's doing her cultural rituals, I'll say, "Why are you doing that? What's the story behind it? What's the significance?" And then she'll say, "Either do it or go away," because it's like I'm tired of explaining to you. But I just think that curiosity, Curious George would be one. But I do think there's one person who I have been incredibly impressed with, and there's a young lady during World War II called Nur Inayat Khan. Sorry, but she was a spy in
Mm,
France for during World War II, and she and a number of women. And so she's Muslim, and she was in the UK, and she ended up going to France to be a spy, and she fed information to the Allies, and they were able to then use that to win the war. But what intrigued me, and she died there in a concentration
I
camp
see.
and torture. But I was thinking to myself, all right, here's a Muslim lady, young lady, she didn't have to do any of this stuff. It wasn't like she, was forced to do it. And yet she went out of her way to do all of this stuff. And so I've read up so many books about her psyche, mentality, about why she did that. Nur Inayat Khan. And in fact, she is one of the only minority females to have gotten medals of honors from the
Wow.
UK, from France and Europe and else places. And yet, when we look at history, when we think of, school and education, I feel like we don't talk about people like that. And if I was
Mm,
there with her having lunch, I'd just say, "What drove you? Give me a sense
mm.
of your mentality, your attitude. What gave you the courage to do those things as a young Muslim lady in that kind of terrible environment, to have the courage to do this, risk your life?" Again, there was no need for her to do it, yet she did it, and she probably saved thousands of soldiers' lives in
Wow.
that process. So she would be most intriguing to me because I'm very big on the mentality side of like, why does somebody do something?
I love that. So, Curious George and Noor Inayat Khan, all about, again, being curious, living the experiences that you talked about. This has been, I will say, hands down, not only the most insightful, but the most fun and, humorous conversation that I've had the opportunity to have on my podcast. Kaileshji, thank you so much for being open, for sharing your experiences, for bringing in the humility, the vulnerability, and the humor and insights, all of it together with your amazing storytelling and capability to connect to stories. I feel so honored, and I'm sure everybody who would listen to it would get so much of information and learning and inspiration from you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are so kind, Purimaji. Blessings to you and all the listeners. And I think you're doing a great job, by the way. Congratulations on getting these
Thank you.
messages out there. And I was going to leave you on a note of my one of my favorite dad jokes of today, because I'm retiring in December, and I was going to tell you retirement jokes, but the problem is they're just too old, so I likely won't tell you.
Thank you so much for leaving us with a laughter. I really appreciate you being on Career in Progress, and I look forward to having you again in your retirement era on Career in Progress.